Hello, and welcome to the Home Designer Quick Start. My name is Kayla, and I will be presenting for you today. And then we also have Stephanie here with us. She's here on chat to answer any questions you might have during today's presentation. Now before we get going, let's take a look at our GoToMeeting control panel. So to set up your audio, it'll default to use mic and speakers. We do have everyone muted, so you don't need to worry about setting up a microphone. But if you have trouble hearing me, you can select this sound check option. It'll give you some troubleshooting options so you can go through that and troubleshoot what's going on there. If you still have problems hearing me, you can switch over to the telephone option. You'll see a number and an access code that will appear below, so you can call in and listen in that way. Like I said, we have Stephanie here with us, so if you have any questions, you can go ahead and type them into this box in the control panel, hit enter, and you'll see your question and her response here up above. And this control panel does reduce to this little box here, so if you're not seeing the full control panel, just click this orange button. It'll maximize it for you. So for today's quick start, I will be working in Home Designer Professional. We do have 5 different products in our Home Designer line. The way that we draw and the general way that the program operates is going to be the same for all the programs. I will try to point out when I'm using features that are only available in the Home Designer Professional so you can get an idea of some of the differences between it and our other programs. So today, we're going to go through a full home plan. We're going to start by drawing out walls and dropping in our doors and windows. Then we'll narrow in on our kitchen design and work with some materials and electrical. We'll build a new floor and work with our stairs, and then work on our foundation a little bit. Then we'll build our roof and look at some framing options that we have. We'll finish out our plan by designing the landscaping. And then we'll take a look at our material list and finish up by creating our construction documents or our layout page. And we'll have some time for question and answer throughout, as well as a little bit of time at the end if you have some lingering questions there. So let's jump right into our plan. When we open up any Home Designer program, we'll get this welcome screen that appears here. Here's where we can open up a new blank plan. We can open a plan that we've recently been working on. Or if you need just a little bit more information on getting started in the program, you can click this button. It'll take you to our website, give you some additional resources, some help in learning the software. If we click on New Plan, it's going to ask us to choose a template. Now what this is this is just the defaults for our plan. So it sets up the materials, what door styles we're using. There's a wide variety of different things that changing the template will change. So for instance, if we take a look at the Colonial, you can see we have the same kitchen but different styles previewed here versus the Today's Traditional where we're going to have a completely different look. Now this is not actually a plan that already has this design in it, it's just setting up those defaults. If we go to the drop down here, here's where we have some actual pre-designed plans that you can use for inspiration. So this is actually going to be a physical plan that you can work with. And here also is where we can switch over to metric units if you're not going to be working in US Imperial. I'm simply going to cancel out of this because I already have a plan with defaults set up open. So what we're looking at here is our floor plan drawing space. Up at the top we have our architectural toolbar, which is going to have all of the tools we can use to draw our plan. So we have walls and windows, doors, cabinets, various editable objects that we can use in our plan. We're always going to start by drawing out the first floor walls. And then later our second floor, or any subsequent floor that we have, and our foundation are going to be based upon how we draw out these first floor walls. So I'm going to start just with an exterior wall. You can see we have several different wall options here. We're going to do an exterior. And to draw a wall, I'm zooming in on my plan if you don't know what I'm doing there, we can click and drag to draw a wall. Now this is just showing me a preview of what that wall is going to look like. There's a temporary dimension that runs alongside as I draw the wall. Once I release my mouse, it's going to physically drop that wall into place. Now I can select the wall simply by clicking on it, and you'll see several things going on here. First of all, we have that temporary dimension that's telling me the length of the wall. We also have these edit handles. So these are going to move the wall. So if I grab an edit handle and click and drag, I can change the length of the wall on either end. This is our rotate handle. So every object in our program is going to have edit handles where we can edit the dimensions. It's also going to have a rotate handle, so I can rotate the angle of that if we're going to be drawing an angled wall or placing anything at a specific angle. With every object as well, when I have it selected, we're going to have this edit toolbar. Now this toolbar down here at the bottom is specific for editing whatever object we have selected. So in this case, it's specific tools in order to edit this wall. And every object within the program is going to have this little open door. This allows me to open up the wall, in this case, and specify various things about it. So we can specify its length. We're not going to specify the height here because that's specified in the room. We'll take a look at that later. We can specify the wall type. So we've drawn out an exterior wall. You can see it's a siding 6 wall. And if we select to define this, it's going to show me what all layers comprise this siding 6 wall. So we have our shingles, our house wrap, we have the framing layer, and then we have our paint on the inside. And then if we drop down, we can see all of the different walls that we have that come with the program. We can also copy different walls and make changes to them. We can create all new walls and set up the layers for them. You have a lot of flexibility, and this flexibility is mostly available in Home Designer Pro and Home Designer Architectural, but all Home Designer programs are going to have the ability to change to a different wall type. So we'll select OK. You can also adjust the materials of the wall for the interior and exterior surface of the wall within this wall specification. So we're going to select OK. And now let's finish drawing out the walls of our home. And again, I'm zooming out using the scroll wheel on my mouse. So that's a really easy way to zoom in and out of your plan. Now I'm not going to worry at this particular time about the specific dimensions. I'm just going to get the overall shape of the home drawn out, and then we'll dimension from there. Now once I complete all the walls and connect them together, this living area appears, so it's telling me how much living area we have in the house. And let's jump into a 3D view here really quickly so we can take a look at this. So just by connecting all the walls, we have a floor and a drywall that's placed here. We also have a ceiling. This particular view is our dollhouse view, so it's going to remove the ceiling. But we have parameters set up for a roof if we're going to be placing that on right now, and we're set up to build a foundation as well. So all of that is going to be built based off of how we've built our first floor. Now I'm going to go back to my floor plan and let's dimension this space. We have a number of different dimensioning tools here. We have some manual dimensions, so for instance let's just do manual dimension tool is going to dimension through a space. We have a interior dimension tool, which is going to only go from drywall to drywall within each room. And we have a point to point, which can go from any one point to any other point. It doesn't have to actually snap to an object. A tape measure, which is essentially another version of a temporary dimension. It's going to release every time we release the mouse. And then we have our automatic dimensions. So if I click my auto exterior, with one click we're going to get all of our exterior dimensions around the house. Now I can select each wall in turn, and I can either select the parallel dimension to change the length of this wall, or I can select a perpendicular dimension to change the distance of this wall to any other parallel wall. So in other words, if I select this wall and then I select this dimension, I can adjust it to 15 feet 4 inches, we're pretty close there. Hit enter, and it's going to move the wall I have selected 3 inches closer to its parallel wall. Now when we're adjusting the dimensions of walls, we're always going to want to start on one end and rotate around from there. So we don't want to jump around to various dimensions because every time we adjust a wall, it's going to adjust its adjoining walls. And what I mean by that is when I adjust this to 12 feet 9 inches, notice how when I hit enter, this dimension obviously changes as well because it's going to pull this wall to meet up with the wall we just moved. So we're always going to want to pay very close attention to what dimensions we're changing and make sure we're not altering the ones that we have already changed. So once we've dimensioned our exterior walls, I want to turn off the display of these automatic dimensions. I want to leave them on the plan, but just turn them off temporarily until we need them again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to my display options, which is going to be this little checkbox tool here, open it up, and we can go down to find our dimensions. Automatic dimensions specifically are what we have on the plan. And I'm just going to uncheck the display column, then select OK, and the dimensions are still there, they're just not displayed right now, so we'll turn them back on later. Now I want to get back into my 3D view, so notice that my camera view is still open. We didn't actually exit out of that, so I can just click over to this tab and see my 3D view, or click back to my floor plan. So this tab system is very effective for us to be able to switch easily between 2D and 3D. Or I also have the option to click and pull this tab, and then once I see the blue indicator where I want it to go, simply release, and it's going to drop that camera position side by side with my floor plan so I can work in both at once. Now we've been designing primarily in our 2D plan view at this point, but I can highlight this camera view and we can draw in our camera view as well. So for instance, I can grab a straight interior wall and I can click and drag to draw a wall and click and drag like so. And notice that as I'm drawing in 3D, it's also updating our 2D view. These two views have a dynamic link. Everything I do in one that has 3D properties is going to display in the other. So that makes it very easy for us to be able to draw in both and move back and forth and make changes. So we can continue to just draw out walls and it's going to update in our 3D view. I like to work in this side-by-side view because I like to work in my plan view, my 2D plan view, but I also like to see what's happening as I'm drawing so I can see if I need to make any adjustments. You can also get into this vertically tiled view by selecting Shift F6, that's the shortcut, or by coming up to this window menu and coming down to Tile Vertically. Now, Home Designer programs are room-based, and what that means is that I can select an actual room and I can edit the properties of that room as a whole. So I mentioned earlier that we don't raise and lower floor platforms in the wall itself, or we don't raise and lower the wall in the wall itself. If we open up our room specification, under the structure, here's where we're going to change our ceiling height, and changing our ceiling height is going to adjust the height of the wall. So if you need to make adjustments to walls, you're typically going to do that within the room. Also in this room specification, in our general panel here, we can change our room type. In this case, we're going to change it to a garage. Now there are different defaults for different room types, so when I select OK for that, it's going to put a concrete floor, and it's also going to remove my molding, because we're not going to have molding in a garage, and lower the floor a bit so that it's going to meet up with our driveway we'll draw later. And then it also sets up parameters for when we build our foundation later, so it's going to build a garage slab foundation rather than a crawl space, which we'll be doing for the rest of the home. So now that we have all of our first floor walls drawn, let's drop in a few doors and windows. And again, we can do this both in our 2D or our 3D view. Now the advantage of dropping in a hinged door, which is what we're going to start with, in our plan view, is that before we drop it in, we can see that indicator of where it's going to go, and we can click, and before we release the mouse at all, we can rotate this around to make adjustments to how the door is going to open. Now, even after we've drawn it, we can select that door, and in our plan view, we can change the hinge side or open it in 3D, close it, or change the swing side. So you still have control after it's drawn, but it's nice to be able to make that adjustment before you go. Now we have lots of different door types here. So we dropped in a hinged door, and one of the nice things about a hinged door, I'm going to show you by swinging around here in our 3D view, it's going to have different defaults for our exterior door as for our interior door. So Home Designer programs are smart enough to know that an interior door is going to look very different than an exterior. So it can tell if it's leading to an exterior space, and a garage space would be considered an exterior space in this case. We also have a sliding door, so we can drop that in. And again, there's a different default for our exterior sliding door, which is going to place a glass, versus an interior. We can place just a doorway and click and drag to change the dimensions. And in this case, I want to have that exact doorway in a couple of other locations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it, and down in my Edit toolbar, I have a copy and paste tool. So I can simply click to paste it into a different location. And then I'll copy that one and click to paste it into our dining room leading into the kitchen area. Now, just like we did with our wall earlier, we can open up this door either by coming down to our Edit toolbar and selecting the open door to open the object, or we can double click on it in Home Designer Pro to open that up. One of the really handy things about Home Designer programs is that that functionality is going to be the same across the board. So it doesn't matter whether you're selecting a room, a wall, a door, a cabinet, you can always open it up to make changes to it. So in this case, we're going to adjust. We have the ability with our glass slider to change the lights. So I want to add some window panes into this slider. So I can simply use my arrow keys to increase the number of lights there, and then select OK to apply the changes. Now before we start placing windows, I just want to center this door on this room. So what I'm going to do, and I can do this in either 2D or 3D, let's do it in our plan view though. So I'll select it over here. Down in my Edit toolbar, I have a Center Object tool. So I can click, wait until my indicator shows that I'm centering over the room, and then click to center it right inside there. So that center object allows you to really precisely position objects within a room. So now let's drop in a couple windows. It's the same thing as doors, so we can just click to drop that in, click to drop it in on each one. Now this is the default window we have set up for our plan, but if I want to make changes, which I do to these two windows, I'm going to hold down my Control key, and in Home Designer Pro only, I can select multiple windows at once to open them up and make changes. So I'll come down to my shutters, and I'm going to remove the shutters on this one. So we're going to change the type over to none. And then in my General panel, I'm actually going to change this to a right sliding. And then obviously those lights need to be adjusted, so let's decrease the lights across and we'll increase the vertical lights. And once that window looks like how we want it to, we'll select OK, and it will apply those changes. So we have a lot of flexibility in Home Designer programs to be able to adjust these doors and windows, either one at a time, or we can adjust our default before we begin for easy placement. So now let's get in and work on our kitchen design. We're going to get into a different camera view for this, so I'm going to exit out of this dollhouse view, and instead of that we have a different camera option. It's a full camera, so we can click and drag and take a look at where we're going to be designing our kitchen space. And once again, I am going to tile my views vertically so that I can see what's going on in my 3D view, but make changes in my plan view as well. We'll back up using the arrow keys just so we have a little bit of a wider view of this space. So now we're going to start our kitchen design simply by dropping in a base cabinet. Now you can see the number of cabinet tools we have available. We're going to start just with our base cabinet. Now I'm going to create a corner cabinet, and I can do that simply by pulling my cursor into the corner, and you can see my indicator is showing that it's going to change it to a base cabinet, so that with one click it'll drop in a corner cabinet rather than just our standard. We can override that by pulling the cursor away from the corner before we drop it in, or pull it back and drop in a corner cabinet. Now I'm going to select these two cabinets at once, again by holding down my Control key, and I'll open them up. And I'm going to remove the diagonal door, which is an option for our corner cabinets, and I'm going to add a Lazy Susan, and then select OK to apply those changes. Now we'll drop in a few more base cabinets. So we'll just click and drag along here. I'm going to resize this one to, let's do actually a little bit smaller. There we go. And this one I'm going to center in the room. And then we'll drop in just a few more base cabinets over here. We'll finish drawing them before we make the changes. It's easy to resize these objects. They're going to resize in 3-inch increments. So we can do so either in our 2D or our 3D view and drop them in either in 2D or 3D, and they're always going to have that indicator to show us where we're going to drop them in before we do. And we can copy and paste cabinets just like we did earlier with our doorway. So that sometimes can be an easy way to drop in a copy of a cabinet if you've made changes to it. So once we have our base cabinets drawn, we can double-click to open them up and make changes. So in this case, I want to change this to a group of drawers rather than a door and a drawer. So in our 2016 version, we now have the ability in Home Designer Pro to split different components. So what this allows me to do is select the door, split it horizontally, and then I can make changes and change these two door sections to drawers. So it makes it very easy to go from one style to another very quickly. So once we finish dropping in our base cabinets, let's drop in 2 full height cabinets, which we'll do in our plan view here, one on each side. And I just want to rotate around so we can see that. So this one's going to become a wall oven, and then we're going to drop in another one over here that'll be a full refrigerator. So this one will resize to nice big 48 inches. And since it's going to be a refrigerator, let's double click to open that up, and we're going to remove the toe kick because we're not going to need that for refrigerator space. And select OK. Now before we place our wall cabinets, I want to drop in a few windows above what's going to be my sink. So I'll drop in one, and notice how it resized to be above the backsplash because the window is smart enough to know that it should not extend down into a cabinet. And then we'll make these nice big and tall, and I'm going to resize this one to 60 inches. And then we'll place 2 more on either side of it. And this one I'll just copy and reflect over to the other side. Then this middle one, I'm going to double click to open that up. We're going to obviously remove the shutters from it, although they're probably not displaying on the outside anyways since they're butting up against windows. Just in case, we'll remove those. And then I'm going to go back to my general and change this to a fixed glass, and we'll remove all lights from this. We'll just have it be a nice big open window. And select OK to apply that change. Now I want to make sure all 3 of these are centered over this cabinet. So I'm going to hold down my Control key to select all 3 of them, and then we can center it right over that window. Which it looks like it already was. Perfect. So now we'll drop in a few wall cabinets since we know where our windows are. Make sure we highlight our 2D since that's where I want to drop these in. And then now we need to get into our library to finish off this space. I'm actually just going to double click on my full camera to expand this view so we can see the kitchen as a whole now. And I'm going to use my mouse keys to kind of rotate around into a different view. So now let's open up our library, and we haven't gotten into our library yet, so this is where we have additional objects that we can place in our home. So we have it divided into different catalogs. We have our core catalog, which is going to be all of the items that come preloaded with the program. We have bonus and manufacturer catalogs, and I'll show you where those are on our website a little bit later. And then we have a folder for our user catalog. So these are objects that we've either created within the program, we've imported from outside the program, or they're items that we've pulled from the previous 3 catalogs to use. So we'll start up here in our core catalog, and we'll expand this architectural folder here and get into our appliances. So we'll start by placing a wall oven. So once we find one, we can simply click to drop that into the cabinet. We'll find a refrigerator and do a standard size, built-in, and click to place that in. Oh, actually I wanted a built-in double door. Let's use our undo button, grab a built-in double door, and click to drop that in. There we go. Then I need to find a sink. Actually, while we're in appliances, let's find a dishwasher too. So we'll do dishwasher drawers right next to where our sink's going to go, and click on the cabinet to drop it in. And we'll find a cooktop, and again, click on the cabinet to drop it in. So this makes it so easy to just drop in all of our appliances to finish off our kitchen. So now we'll reduce the appliance simply by selecting the arrow. We can maximize or minimize that. And we'll go down to our fixtures, go to sinks and kitchen sinks, find an undermount one, and once we find one we like, we'll click to drop it in, just like we did with our appliances. Now I want to go down to my user catalog because I have a couple of pre-designed items that we're going to place in our plan. So I have this hood that we can simply click to drop in, and then I also have a custom island that I've created, so we can click to drop that in as well. Then I'm going to quickly toggle back to my floor plan and rotate that around using that triangle rotate handle we have here. Now, architectural blocks allow us to edit an object as a whole, so I can move that entire object 4 feet from the sink, and we can also make sure that this entire thing is centered in our kitchen space. So when we go back to our full camera view, here we have our island, and we can also unblock these, and then we can edit individual objects. But being able to block items together and add them to our library makes for very easy designing capability. So now to finish off this kitchen design, we just need to create our backsplash, our full backsplash, and then work with some of our materials. So up here in our cabinet options, we have a custom backsplash. So we can simply click on a wall and it'll drop in that backsplash for us. Same thing on this wall. So now I want to change the material of that backsplash, and I want to change it to a subway tile. So there's a lot of different ways that we can change materials. This first way, we're just going to search through our catalog, and we have a catalog of materials, and we have some tile options. Want a solid tile, and there's a subway. We can also use the search bar up here. If we just wanted to type in subway, it would have come up with these options as well. Then once we find one we like, we have a variety of scopes that we can paste that on. So if I were to change this over to room and click, it's going to adjust that material throughout the entire room. So you can see it pasted that white material on every instance of that white marble throughout the room. However, I don't want to change the countertops, I just want to change the backsplash. So we're going to undo that, and then I'm going to change my scope over to just component. Now when I click on that backsplash, so it'll change just that backsplash. Same thing when I click over here. Now another way that we can adjust materials is we can use our material eyedropper to take any existing material in the plan, click on it, and then simply paste it onto another element in the room. Now because this is simply a color, we have an additional option that's here. So this blend colors with material option, which looks like a little paint roller, is going to allow us to click on any existing material with a texture. And in this case, let's change it over to room because I want to change this instance of the material throughout the room. And then we can click and it will maintain our subway tile texture but change the color. Now we also have this adjust material definition tool. So what this does, if I click on an existing material in the plan, I can come down to our texture, which is going to be the view that we're looking at now. It's going to adjust this view. And I can change the scale down to, let's do 4 by 3.5 inches. So it's going to be a smaller tile. And then here's where that material that we pasted, or the color that we pasted onto the material, this is where that's showing up. We can click on this color if we want to lighten the hue a little bit, or if we wanted to change it to any other color. There's also this eyedropper tool here that allows us to grab different hues from within the plan to apply them. So this define material gives you a lot of flexibility over materials in your plan. Now, when we change things in our texture, we always want to make sure to go to our pattern, and I'll show you why in just a little bit. I'll select OK here, and now let's also adjust our flooring. So we're going to adjust the texture, or the texture. We're going to rotate it 90 degrees because I want it to go in a different direction. So then we'll select OK. It's going to rotate that material. In the view that we're in, that looks exactly how we've changed it. But if we look at some of our other rendering options, let's exit out of our library browser here for a second. If we look at some of our other rendering options, right now we're in our standard render view, but when we switch over to our vector view, notice that the two materials we've altered have not changed in this view. That's because these are our pattern view. So now if we change the angle of this to 0 degrees, it's going to adjust the angle of our material here so that it matches what we have in our standard render. So that's why we have a different texture versus pattern, is because it's for the two different view types. So some of our other rendering options, we also have the ability to do a glass house. So we can, especially in a kitchen where we can see into our cabinets and see what's going on there. We have the ability to do a technical illustration, which is going to utilize our pattern as well. Or we have the ability to do a watercolor. And all of these can be adjusted. So if we go back to Glass House and take a look at our technique options, we can increase the line thickness, increase or decrease the transparency. So you can see now we can see into the garage there. And we have similar elements in our other views to be able to change as well. So we'll go back to our standard view, select OK. Now notice how we have light and shadows in our room coming off of our electrical. If you're not seeing those, we do have a preference for that. So if you open up your preferences, and under our render options, we have the ability to turn off shadows or reflections in mirrors. And a lot of these shadows are dependent upon the lights that we have placed in the room too. So looking at some of our electrical options, we do have a light option. So we can click to drop a light in. And as we drop in different lights, it's going to change the lighting in the room. And the reason for that, if we open up one of these lights, we have a light data panel here where we can change the intensity, we can turn them on, we can determine whether or not they're going to cast shadows, and we can add multiple light sources to a single light. So that would be helpful for something like a pendant light where you have multiple lights coming off, or a chandelier. And these lights that we're dropping in are just the default light that we have set up for our electrical tools. In our library we have additional lighting options such as these pendants here. We're going to go back to our floor plan for a second because we're going to take a look at some of the other electrical tools we have available. So as you can see, we have different outlet options, so we can click to drop in an outlet. We have a switch, so we can drop in switches throughout the room. And we also have an auto place outlet tool. Now what this does, and actually before I use this, I'm going to name this room a kitchen. So we're going to double click to open this room up. And just like we did for the garage earlier, let's change this room type in our room specification over to a kitchen. And we'll move this over here so we can see that in our view a little better. So now, when I use that Auto Place Outlets tool, and we click to drop in our outlets, it's going to drop in GFCI outlets, and that's because we have named this a kitchen, and it's going to disperse them throughout the room evenly. Then we can make adjustments, so if we want to move one around or if we want to delete one or add another one, we can always do so. But that Auto Place Outlet tool is a really quick way to click in all of the outlets in our room. Then to finish off our electrical plans, we have a Connect Electrical tool. So if I, for instance, connect between our switch and our electrical, we can click and drag these different connections and it's going to create our full electrical plan. Now notice too, when I connected all of my lights to both switches, it changed this over to a three-way switch for us, so it's very intelligent in that way. And just like that, we finish off our full electrical plan. And we do have, just like with the lights, additional electrical options within the library. So if you have different type of switches you're using, if you have specific appliance outlet types, you can search for those in the library as well to really specify your electrical plans. Alright, so now let's shift our attention a little bit. I'm going to exit out of my camera view there, and let's work on creating a second floor. So we've just been working with our first floor at this point, but our first floor walls are pretty well set. So let's come up to our floor tools, and we're going to select Build New Floor. Now it's going to ask us, do we want to derive the second floor from the first floor plan? And I prefer to always do that. What it's going to do is it's just going to place the exterior second floor walls directly on top of the first floor. So that's part of the reason why we start with our first floor walls, is so we can just derive the second floor from it. Select OK on that, and I'm just going to accept all the defaults. We do have different defaults for floor 2, so if you have a different flooring type, different molding style, or different floor ceiling heights, you can adjust all of that here. We'll select OK, and it automatically took us up to our second floor. So you can see the indicator here is telling me that we moved up to floor 2. And I'm going to turn on my reference display for a bit, which is over here in my display. And then I'm going to adjust some of these walls. I'm going to click and drag to pull that back. And then I'm going to grab this exterior wall and click and drag to pull it across. Then I'm going to use my break wall tool, and we haven't used this yet. What this allows me to do is I want to rotate the inside of this wall so that the siding is facing the other direction, because if we zoom in right now we can see the siding is facing this way, and I want it to face the other way, and I'll show you why in just a bit. But in order to do that, if I were to flip this wall now, it's going to rotate my siding over down here, which I want to remain that direction. So instead, I'm going to use my break wall tool, and if we zoom in you can see it created a little break there, so that now I can select this wall independently from this one. And I can select that wall, and down here in my Edit toolbar, simply reverse the layers so that it's going to display on the other side. Now I'm going to open up this room, and under our Structure tab, I'm going to lower the ceiling down to 12 inches. Now the reason why I'm doing this is we're going to go on to build our roof right now, and I want the roof over this section to build lower than the roof over this section. So if we take a look at our 3D view so far, our full overview, here's what it looks like at this point. And this is precisely the location where I want my roof to build on each section. I'm going to tile these views vertically again while we're working on our roof. And since we have our floor 2 set, I'm just going to go into my roof objects, or my roof tools, and select to build roof. Now I'm just going to click to build roof planes, auto rebuild roofs, and we're going to change the pitch to 10 and 12. Now we're going to be doing a fairly simple structure, and I'm not going to get a whole lot into our roof options right now. We do have how we build our different roof styles. So it'll automatically build a hip roof for us. We're going to change over to a gable. But if you want some more information on roofs and how we build those and all the different elements to it, we do have a separate webinar for that one. So we'll select OK, and it's going to put our 10 and 12 hip roof on automatically. Now I'm going to make some adjustments because this is not what we want our end roof to look like. So I'm going to change everything over to gable. So we're going to select each end that we want to make a gable end, and we'll come down to our edit toolbar and we have the ability to change to a gable wall. Now we can also do that by opening up the wall, and under our roof panel we have a full gable wall checkbox. Then we can select OK and change that. That would also be, if we look at there, if we wanted to change the pitch, here's where you can do that as well. So we'll change that to a gable wall, and same thing over here. And again, we need to use our break wall tool because I don't want this gable to extend all the way down. If I were to select that to a gable right now, it's going to create a structure that is not quite what we're looking for. So what we're going to do, I'm going to undo that, and we're going to break the wall right where it meets up with this wall over here. Then I can change this section to a gable, and then that gable will only extend down that far, and then we have the end for this front gable. So now there's just one more we need to change, so let's rotate around, and even in our 3D view we can grab this wall and change that to a gable as well. So now we have the roof set exactly the way that we need it to, so that's done. But if we take a camera view inside of this space here above the garage, you'll notice that we don't have livable space up here right now. There's no drywall and there's not really anywhere where we can build space because if you'll recall, we changed our ceiling height to 12 inches. So what we're going to do is I don't want to change the roof anymore, but I do want to raise the ceiling. If I were to raise the ceiling as is, it would raise the roof. So in our Build Roof dialog, if we open that back up, we can uncheck Auto Rebuild Roofs, select OK, and now when we open up this room again and change it back to our default height, it's going to not alter the roof at all. So if we take another full camera view, we now have livable space inside of here, and we can place windows and have some workable space here. So now that we've built our second floor, I'm going to exit out of here, and let's exit out of our full overview at this point too. So we're going to create our staircase leading up to our second floor. So right now we don't have any way to get up here. So we'll go down to our first floor and we're going to draw out a full camera view here in this space. And this is where I want our staircase to go. And once again, let's tile our views vertically here and turn off our reference display for right now. We'll zoom in here. So under our stair tools, we're just going to use our straight stairs. We do also have curved stairs and ramps if you need those. Home Designer Pro is the only one with the ramp option. But with our straight stairs, we're simply going to click and drag to draw out our stair sections. So we'll release and it'll drop in that section for us. I want this to be an L-shaped stair, so we'll click and drag over here as well, and it's going to draw it from the floor. But there's a very easy way to change this. First off, I'm going to pull this a little bit closer. So with these stair sections drawn, I'm going to use my straight stair tool again and simply click in between them, and it will create that landing for us. Now I'm going to double click to open up this staircase. So if we wanted to override the way that this staircase has been drawn, if we wanted to raise or lower the different tread heights, we can do so here. However, I'm mostly focused right now on the fact that it tells me that this is a steep staircase. So right now it's saying that it requires 20 to have a best fit riser height. And right now we have 18 risers. So what I'm going to do, select OK, And I'm just going to pull this back so we have 2 more. Now, when I double click to open that up, it's just going to tell me staircase reaches next level. So it's not telling me that it's too steep or too shallow at this point. We've got a best fit. And if we wanted to make additional modifications, you can change the railing, you can change the materials and the style, whether or not you have a stringer, how thick your tread is. There's a lot of specification here for your stairs. We'll simply select OK. And now we need to have a stairwell because right now we're hitting the ceiling pretty quick there. So we do have a tool called Auto Stairwell, so that with one click it simply creates a stairwell up to the next floor. So if we were to move up to the 2nd floor, here we can see that stairwell that was created. However, I want to change this a little bit so that we have a nice big open entryway. So I'm going to go up to my 2nd floor on my floor plan. I'm going to rotate this camera around here. There we go. So as you can see, it created this room and it named it a stairwell. If we open up this room, all that is it's simply a room marked open below. So if we just draw out any number of walls and name it an open below room, it's going to create that stairwell effect for us. In this case, we already have a stairwell drawn. I just want to alter the shape. So I'm just going to pull out those walls and we'll drag these walls back. And then I'm going to delete this one so that now we have that full entryway effect down into our entryway. So let's exit out of here. So we've built our 2nd floor at this point. Let's turn off our reference display and we're going to go down to our 1st floor. And let's create our foundation. So that's going to be under our floor tools as well. We're going to go down to Build Foundation. Now with Home Designer Professional, we have a lot of control over how this foundation is built. So we can select walls with footings, which is what we're going to do. We're going to be having a crawl space, which is going to have our 37.5-inch walls. But we can switch over to a structure built on piers if we want, or a monolithic slab if you're somewhere that you're not going to need a crawl space at all. Here's where we can specify our slab thickness, and we can change the minimum height. If we raised that to something like 100 inches, it would create room for a basement. So we're going to leave it at 37.5, but I do just want to show, if we do 100 inches and hit Tab, now it's going to tell us that that basement ceiling height is 96 inches. Once you get high enough that there's room for a basement, it's going to put in a ceiling height for you, but obviously a crawl space is not going to be a full basement. And then we do have different options for our garage as well. So we have a different stem wall height, and then down below we have our treated sill options. In our options panel, here's where in Home Designer Pro we can specify our rebar spacing for our foundation and whether or not we're going to be using a mesh. So we'll accept all the defaults here, select OK. Same thing, we are going to derive the foundation from the 1st floor, which is why we don't start with our foundation, but we start with our 1st floor in Home Designer programs. And it'll take us down to our foundation floor. So now, let's take a cross section of this. We're going to do our back clipped cross section, which is going to be a camera view only available in Home Designer Pro. And we'll clip right through here. So we can see what we have so far. We have our gable roof, and if we zoom in here, here's where we have our 37.5-inch crawl space and our footing. So that's what's built when we create our foundation. And let's exit out of here and we can take a full overview of this so you can see that foundation in our 3D view as well. So now let's turn our attention to creating our terrain for our lovely house to sit on here. So we're going to come up to our terrain tools, and the very first thing we need to do before we can do anything else with our terrain is to create the terrain perimeter. And we're on our 0 floor. Let's go up to floor 1. There we go. And create that terrain perimeter. So it's going to drop in that terrain for us. It's going to drop it in by default at about 20 inches below our 1st floor, which is where our garage is sitting, so that our garage door meets up with our terrain. And if we go back to our floor plan view, back up to our 1st floor, it's going to place just a rectangular lot. we can adjust that. We can adjust all the dimensions and the size, and we can also change different lines to curves or make angled lines. You can create a very specific site plan. We're going to be doing a fairly simple one today because that's what this home requires. But the first thing I want to do for this plan is I want to create our front porch area. So I'm going to tile these vertically once again and zoom in on this porch area. And we're going to use actually our room divider tool to draw invisible walls along our terrain here. What that's going to do is it's going to create a room with no walls. I'm going to open that room up and we're going to change that over to a porch. And in our structure, we're going to remove the roof over this room. Select OK. So there we have our porch, and it looks like we need to change the structure of that. So let's change that to 20 inches. And then we're going to go up to our second floor, and this time we're going to use our railing tool to draw out railings. Let's turn on our reference display here. There we go. Directly on top of where our porch is. And if we don't line up the walls exactly, we can select this railing and we can select to align with wall below so that it's directly on top of the wall below it. Now we're going to open this up and we're going to change this to a porch as well, and we're going to go down to structure and remove roof over this room as well. We'll select OK there. Now I want to open up my two railing walls, and we're going to change the height of these to 12 inches, and we'll change the newel height to 13 inches. This is not actually going to be a livable porch, it's just going to be decorative. Alright, and now we need supports for this upper porch, so we're going to grab a column. We'll go into our library here and grab a square column and drop that into our first floor. And then we're going to simply copy and reflect that column right across the porch. So we have an exact copy on the other side. Then we'll copy it and pull a copy out, and copy again and pull that copy out. Then I'm going to select both of these by holding down my Control key, copy and reflect both copies across the porch. So now we have supports for that upper balcony area. Next, we're going to use our Click Stairs tool, which with one click is going to place a best fit staircase leading up from the terrain to the porch. And we'll resize it using our edit handles here. And then open this staircase up because under our style panel, I want to remove open underneath and open risers. Then we'll use our material eyedropper, let's exit out of this library, to paste materials onto this staircase. There we go. So that finishes off our porch area. So I'm going to draw a sidewalk leading up to it. So we're going to go to Build, actually Terrain Options, and then we have Road and Sidewalk. So first I'm going to draw a road across this plan. We'll pull that back a bit. And then a sidewalk leading up to that porch. We'll resize that a little bit. And then we're going to draw a driveway. Let's turn off our reference display there. So we also have a driveway option. So I'm going to click and drag out the area for a driveway. And then similar to our break wall tool, we have a break line tool in our edit toolbar. So we can break the line for this driveway and then pull out just a section of it to lead down to the road. Also under our terrain tools, we have actually this one's under build. I'm going to go to our fencing. So we have a straight fencing option. So I'm simply going to click and drag to draw out a fence just like we do any other wall in the program. And we're going to create a full area here. Then, opening back up my library, we're going to type in gate and go down until we find something similar. I'm going to right click on that and select to show in browser so that it'll take us directly to our gates folder. Then I'm going to grab one and drop it into my plan. Then we'll pull that down a bit. And I also need to make that a little bit wider so that it can accommodate that sidewalk. And in this case, so when you increase the size of a door, which a gate is essentially a door, it's going to change it to a double door at a certain width. I don't want this to be a double door, so I'm going to double click to open this up. I'm going to come down to options and select single door only. And then it'll change it back to a single swinging door for us. Now I need to match some of my materials. So I'm going to grab my material eyedropper and grab this color. This time we're going to do it plan wide, and we don't want to blend it with the wood. So we're going to click on that gate. So now the final thing we need in this plan is some plants. So let's come up to our terrain and we have a plant chooser tool. Now what this does is it allows us to search for plants based on a variety of characteristics. So we can type in the name of the plant, or if we happen to know the scientific name, you can type that in. We can search for specific types, so in this case I'm going to search for a tree, and I'm going to search one that blooms in spring or summer. And then we can change the height, so I want one that's from, let's do 4 to 8 feet. Actually, that's a little small. 8 to 16 up to 24 feet high. Then we have this hardiness zone option. So if we select to view map, you can see the variety of different areas that we can search for. In this case, we're in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, so I am going to search for a 5 to 6 hardiness zone range. We're going to change this from 5 to 6. Then we'll hit search, and we'll see the options appear here. If we switch over to common name, we can select any one, and we can select to view the item before we place it in our plan. And then once we find one we like, we can close out of here, and we can open up our library, and it's going to take us directly to where that tree we found was. So then we can simply click to place a few of those in here, and because it's taking us in our library, it's going to categorize them so we can find similar trees if we want to place those in, or we can even use a shrub. So we'll place a couple of shrubs out here in front, and once we've placed 3, I'm going to copy all 3 and reflect them across that porch. If we double click to open that up and exit out of our library browser. So let's exit out of here and let's take a look at our framing plan. Since our house is set at this point, we're going to come up to our framing tools and we're just going to build our framing. Now we have a lot of options to edit our framing. We're going to select to build our floor framing, and we can adjust the spacing here. Now this framing dialog is only going to be available in Home Designer Professional, so this is going to be a professional tool available in that version. Go in the first floor and build our ceiling and floor framing. Go down to our second floor and again build ceiling. And then we'll need to build our wall framing, and we can specify the spacing for that if we want. We're going to go, here's where we can change our openings. And then we're just going to stick frame our roof, so we're not going to worry about trusses at this point. We're just going to have it stick framed. So we'll accept all of that, select OK, and it's asking if I want to display my framing on my plan view. I don't want to do that at this time, so we're going to select no, we don't want to display any of these layers. If we change our mind, we can come up to our display options and come down to the framing and select to display those. But I'm going to take a full 3D overview of this framing. So we can see the framing plan that we have, and it's automatically framed around our openings. In Home Designer Pro, we do have the ability to adjust all of these members if we want to, for instance, add more cripples under our window, adjust a header size, or move framing over. You have the ability to do that with Home Designer Professional. So we can create our full accurate framing plans with this program. Now we're going to exit out of there for now, and let's take a look at our material list, especially now that we have our framing. We're going to come up to Tools, down to Material List. Now we can calculate from a specific area or from just a single room. That's especially helpful if we're just going to be doing an addition or a remodel. In this case, we're going to calculate from all floors. So it's going to pull up our material list, and everything that we've placed in our plan thus far is going to show up here. It's going to have just a general ID. It's going to tell us what floor it's on, ranging from 0, which is our foundation, up to 3, which is going to be our attic floor. Then it's going to give a general size, a description, a count, as well as what unit it is. And if we come down to our framing, we can create both a cut and a buy list for our framing. So we can either display our framing in lineal feet, or we can do it piece by piece, whether showing how we're going to cut the lumber or how we're going to buy it. If we come up to our display options here in the material list, this allows us to turn on and off different categories. So if we are not concerned with furniture, or we're only concerned with our framing, we can select different categories to show. And then we can add or remove columns as well. So if we want to add a column for markup or labor, you can do so here. If we want to remove the pricing, you can do that as well. So we can add a cost per item, and in Home Designer Pro we also have a master list, so we can save those costs for future plans and bring those in. Let's exit out of here. Oh, actually, before I do, we can also export this material list in a number of different formats. So if you need to work with another program, you can export it and work with it in that way. So now let's exit out of this material list, and we're not going to save it right now. And now that our plan is finished, let's create our construction documents. So we're going to start simply by opening up a new layout. So this is our layout page, and it's going to have our title block where if we zoom in, we can add our designer name, we can add the project details, give a title for this particular sheet, and here you can import your logo and place it there. This is all editable, so if this is not exactly how you want it to look, you can use our CAD tools to draw out your own design. We also have a date that's automatically populated, and then we have our sheet size, or our sheet number. By default right now we are using an 18 by 24, and this layout page is only available in Home Designer Professional. So this is the program from which we're going to create construction documents. So now let's toggle back to our floor plan, and there's a couple things I want to do before I send this view to my layout. First of all, I want to turn those dimensions back on. So let's get into our layer display options, and we're going to turn back on those automatic dimensions that we had displayed earlier. And there's a couple other layers I want to turn off right now. So I'm going to come down and turn off my plants. Don't want those to display. And then I'm going to go up and turn off my fencing as well. There it is. And then we'll select OK. And once we have those layers set, I'm going to come up and select to send to layout. So we're going to do the current screen, and we're going to set it at 1/8 an inch equals a foot, so we can set our scale image by image as we send it. Then we'll select OK, and I'm going to pull the margins of this in a bit and pull this up into the corner. Then we'll go up to my second floor, and I'm going to turn off my attic wall. So let's come up here and turn off walls attic. And then we're going to turn on automatic dimensions up here. And I actually don't want it to snap to my windows, so we're going to undo that. And in our defaults, we're going to come down to Dimension, Auto Exterior Dimensions, and we're going to deselect to locate to the sides of my openings. So now when I select Auto Dimensions, it's just going to dimension to my walls. Then I'll send to layout, and we're going to again do 1/8 an inch equals a foot. And we'll put that right next to the first floor plan. And notice it's automatically telling us the first floor versus the second floor. Now I'm going to take an elevation of the front of my house. So instead of the back clipped cross section, we're going to do a cross section elevation for the front. And once again, we're going to turn off plants, deselect that, and I'm going to remove the color as well. Then we'll send this to our layout, and we'll do an 1/8 an inch equals a foot. And finally, we're going to send a picture of the home for our layout as well. So we'll come back to our floor plan, take a full overview, and then we're going to send this to our layout page. Now notice we don't have a scale here because this is a 3D model, so it's just going to be a picture image. Select OK, but we can change the size of that. So we'll make that a little bit bigger there. And there we have our layout page. So it's very easy for us to just go through and create different views to send to our layout. And with that, we finish up our plan. So now I just want to show you a few things on our website, homedesignersoftware.com. And if we look under our products, we can see the 5 Home Designer products that we offer. Like I said, I was working in the Home Designer Professional version, but we do have several other programs. And if you look at our product chooser, this will give you a good breakdown of what each program is capable of so that you can narrow in which product is right for you. We also do have a free trial download, so you're welcome to go and download a trial version of the Professional or of some of our other products as well. It is an unlimited trial. You can use it for as long as you need, and it has full feature capability. You just won't be able to save or print your work while working in the trial version. Under our User Center, we do have training videos available. These are a great way to learn more about the program. We have a samples gallery, so here's where you can download some sample plans for some design inspiration, or we have renderings so you can see samples of what you can accomplish with our Home Designer programs. Also under our User Center, here's where you can download bonus and manufacturer content from our website. And we have our Home Talk user forum. This is a great place to connect with other users, ask questions, share designs. I really encourage you to go and check that out. Under our support tab, you can go to our knowledge base. Now this is an excellent resource. We have over 500 articles that will walk you step by step through various things in the program. And they're divided into different categories, so if you want to learn more about roofs, you can see all of the articles that we have available for roof design. And so what we did today was a variant on a 1.5 story roof. So this will give you some more information on how you can create living space in the attic with all of our Home Designer programs. So I want to thank you so much for attending today's Home Designer demonstration. Please feel free to go and check some of those online resources out, download a trial version. We do also have a 30-day money-back guarantee on all purchases, and we have upgrades and discounts available, so if you have a previous version or you have a program that you want to upgrade, we have discounts available for that. And if you need help deciding what product is going to be right for you, please feel free to give us a call, send us an email. We would be more than happy to help you narrow down what's going to work best for you. Thank you again for attending today's Quick Start demonstration. Stephanie will be here for a few minutes after today's presentation, so you can ask her some more questions and she will respond to those. Thank you again. Bye.